So hello and welcome to Domi Tries This. I hope you brought your cuppa. Today's coffee mug is my Kiss the Day Hello coffee mug. And when I got up and first started setting up, we had sunshine and it looked beautiful outside, and now it's all gray again. We got another rainstorm coming in, I'm assuming. Just seems to be the season for it. Spring, rain, yeah, kind of goes hand in hand. Anyway, today's tea is my Stash Double Bergamot Earl Grey Black Tea. It's a tea that I've tried on the channel before and that I have enjoyed in the past. And I just thought I'd bring it back for today, in an effort to kiss the day hello. Yeah. Anyway, let's go ahead and get this a taste and go ahead and get started. As I said, I've had it before. It has been steeping for a little bit, so it's probably pretty much at the point of fullness for it, though it might deepen a little bit before the end of the video. I'm gonna go ahead and sip up. It's a very good tea. There is not a specific flavor in it like, say, vanilla or chamomile or something like that. It is definitely, it's an Earl Grey tea, so it has that flavor to it, and it has sort of a deep and faint bitterness towards the end of the sip that comes from being a black tea. Just one reason why most black teas are not something that I like to drink, but it's a good tea and I like it, and it's nice and warm on a day that should have been nice. Started off nice. Anyway, so today is our Whole and Healthy Wednesday, and before we get started, let's go into our old and new. First of all, we're going to be using our 1 month palette, the Bad Habit Pretty Poison, which is a beautiful palette. I've been enjoying using it. I will say at this point, before I get to the actual review at the end of the month, there is some limitations on the palette, but it's a gorgeous palette and it's colors that I love, and the pigmentation has been just beautiful. So I'm really enjoying this, and it's kind of in the middle. I played with it a little bit before I got chosen for the 1 month palette, but not a lot. And it is fairly new. It's like from the end of last year, I believe. So it is still considered fairly new. From the old is my Juvia's Place Zulu palette. I adore this palette, and for a while it was a palette that I was using all the time. I do have an idea of kind of where I want to go today, so this is going to be a nice addition to what I kind of want to do, and really looking at getting into the greens today, I think, a little bit. And for new is a palette that I just received and have yet to use at all. I've swatched it on the channel, I believe, or when I opened it. I may have opened it on Facebook. But that is the second Alamar palette, and so we'll be pulling some of these colors into the look as well. So that is our new for today. And our other sort of on the kind of new, I've used it once or twice, but not really, and that's the Be a Light palette in the light to medium. This has a contour, a blush, it has a blurring powder, and it has a highlighting powder that you're supposed to use all over your face. I don't think it's an actual highlighter from the way I've played with it. I think it's just kind of a lightener. Yeah, see, it doesn't really highlight, so, but we're going to play with this. If I'm going to play with this, it's going to have to be now before the summer really hits kind of hard and I start darkening up because I go walking, assuming the rain ever stops. But yes, this will be something that I'm also going to play with today. Most everything else I do believe is going to be coming from like my BoxyCharm and my Ipsy. Those boxes are on their way or about to be on their way. So yeah, just need to get more use out of them. I've been playing with so many other things that I need to get more use out of those. So today we're finally going to get into food and diets, and I have a couple disclaimers, and I'm going to put them up there because food is one of those things that we humans get very, very passionate about. What we eat, I mean, look at arguments over whether or not pineapple belongs on pizza. People get downright, argumentative. People really defend their food choices, and I can understand that. So I want to make some disclaimers because I suspect we're going to be getting a lot of defense in the comments, if not right away, at least sometime in the future, if my subscriber count goes up and people go and watch old videos. Sometimes they'll comment later. So I want to get all of this out of the way to begin with. One, no, I'm not a doctor. I do research usually pretty thoroughly. I did a lot of research when I started losing weight. I've been doing a lot of research since I started losing weight. Been doing a lot of research since I started working on muscle and decided to ignore losing weight. So, and I don't mean that I went to, Name Your Diet's website to research it. I went to scientific articles, scientific sites, people who follow science, doctors, stuff like that. I mean, and when I'm saying doctors, I'm not saying like Dr. Oz or people who are like supporting quote unquote junk science or stuff like that. I try to find legitimate sources, and I do try to back them up, and I do try to list some of them down below. So make sure in most of these videos, especially when we're talking about stuff like this, that you check down below to see if I've left any links for you to read, to follow up on, because I do try to do research. And I'm not saying that my 20 minutes of Google a day is going to make me an expert, but when you have people who've studied diets for 20 years tell you that dieting is a problem, you start listening to those people. Anyway, so that's the first thing to keep in mind. I'm not an expert. I'm not a doctor, but I do try to research. You're welcome to ignore it. The thing, though, is to keep in mind, I am coming from a scientific standpoint as much as possible. Being a layperson who's not got really anything in the game, so to speak, I'm trying to come from the perspective of science. And if a diet works for you, it works for you. But your anecdote doesn't disprove the science. So just keep that in mind. I'm not trying to be rude, honestly. But a lot of times in these arguments, people act like, well, it worked for me, disproves everything. And that's not necessarily true. We are all individuals, and things will work for individuals. That does not disprove the science. That just means that it worked for you, or you did something to make it work for you. So let's go with that. Most of these diets that we're going to discuss are restrictive, and restrictive diets are hard to sustain. If you are getting on a diet that is requiring you to remove food that you enjoy eating, you are less likely to remain on that diet. And that's what they mean by hard to sustain. So a lot of these diets, and a lot of these diets count on that. Weight Watchers counts on that. Counts on you going back to your old eating habits so that you have to come back. They can lead to more of the dieting roller coaster that is hard on our bodies and slows our metabolism. In all honesty, if you are on a diet and it works, and then you gradually migrate to your regular way of eating, and then you have to go back to that diet, it's probably not the right diet for you because you've migrated off of it. That should tell you everything you need to know about the diet you're on. Finally, well, not finally, but next, a number of these diets started to address specific medical conditions that have nothing to do with weight. They started to, like the first one we're going to discuss, actually started to help with seizures and diabetes. They started to help with gluten intolerance. They started in the medical community as medical, doctor guided diets for people who had specific issues that the diet addresses. That's what they started as. Not all of them, but a number of them did. And that have nothing to do with weight. And they've become a part of a diet culture. And as a result of that, they've become more of a money grab than anything else. Now, there are a couple diets that do not have that particular origin or path of their history, but it's something to keep in mind with these diets. As with anything, any or all of these may work for you, but if you're bouncing on and off of it, because it works when you're on it, but you get back off of it, you're probably doing more damage than good and haven't found the diet for you that will help you maintain your health in a lifelong manner. And that's what this whole and healthy thing is about. It's about health. So I wanted to get all of that out of the way. I know that's a long intro, and I will probably repeat it on part 2 because I'm actually covering 8 diets, I think it is. And I'm trying to get to 4 of them today. So I just want to cover all of that because I know someone's going to try to come for me, and I'm going to have all of this stuff up front. It's a disclaimer. It is to let you know I'm not an expert. I'm coming at you from the science, and here is what the science is telling me, and here's what you should be thinking about if you are bouncing on and off of a diet, because we've discussed that before. Every time you go and lose weight, you slow your metabolism down, and you make it harder the next time. And losing weight, being stressed about food and about denial and all of that stuff is not necessarily the best way to go in terms of your whole health. So with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. And this eye is already getting a little damp. Thank you so much, eye. So another couple of things before we get started. I will have to look at my secondary phone with my notes quite a bit, which means I'm probably going to have to lift it up and look at it very closely because without my glasses, I'm blind. I mention this on the Facebook Lives all the time. If we were doing a live here and you were making comments, I wouldn't be able to read them while doing makeup. Secondly, my upstairs neighbor is home. And they have their music on really loud. So if you hear it, I apologize. If you hear thumping, I apologize. Apparently last night, they had some friends move in with them or something. So there's been a lot going on in the last 24 hours. I will say that the gentleman that lives up there, who is usually very loud on the porch, is not being so today. However, you may still get background noise, and for that, I do apologize. Alrighty, with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. And I'm going to start with this Alamar, the second Alamar palette, the new one. And I'm going to use this color, Mambo, underneath my brow. I'm really hoping this yellow is going to show up. And our first diet is going to be a keto diet. Now, I'm not going to get into how each diet works. I'm just going to discuss the basics of the diet and what science has found and things of that nature. We are not getting into this is how you get to ketogenesis or anything like that, which is what the keto diet is all about. So the keto diet is a diet that was actually started to help control seizures and help diabetics. And the reason it's supposed to help diabetics is because it is a low carb diet, but it is high in fat and protein. It is a diet that was initially started and should be done under medical supervision. It was not initially intended to go out into the public like that. It's performing like a standard yellow on my skin. I don't know what it is about yellows and brown skin. They just don't work well. Only short-term results have been studied, and there have been mixed results on those. It is a diet that has a number of risks, including nutrient deficiencies, which is what you get when you start pulling out carbs, because carbs are your energy source. And when you pull out carbs, you're pulling out a lot of stuff that has other stuff for you that's supposed to be really healthy as well. It's a very strange yellow. It's a little deeper than I expected it to be. You can end up with, liver problems because of, I think liver is the amount of fat that you're taking in on these diets, on the keto diet. You can end up with kidney problems because of the amount of protein that you take in on these diets, on this diet. It's actually very similar, not the same as, but very similar to Atkins, which we'll also be discussing today, and has some of the same issues. And you can end up with fuzziness of the mind and other issues because your brain uses sugars to process for processing and energy. So it does have a number of risks that you have to watch out for if you're going to be on the diet. This is one of those diets that, to me, the risks outweighs the benefits. I mean, we see medications like that all the time. This medication is supposed to help with this, that, and the other thing, but you need to watch out for these other things that are life-threatening. Sometimes the cure is worse than the disease, I'm telling you. Okay, I'm going to go over this yellow with my Zulu yellow and see if that helps at all. This yellow is just a little on the kind of a dark, odd side. So as I was saying, carbs are what you use for energy. Okay, this one is a little bit lighter. It's lightening it up some. I think it's actually adding a bit to the pigmentation, which is great. Just a little bit. We don't need a lot here. Anyway, carbs are what you need for energy. And if you're a highly active person, you're going to need carbs. This would not be a diet if you are an active person, because you're basically depriving your body of what it needs to fuel your activity, and you're slowing down your performance. You're reducing your performance because you're trying to get your body to burn fat for fuel, and fat is not that easy to burn as fuel. Okay, that lightened it up some, sort of. I still have a lot, still a little darker towards the crease, but up towards the top it is a bit lighter. We're going colorful today, guys. We really are. I'm going to take this about 2/3 to 3/4 across the lid, and then I'm going to put this on the outer edge. I kind of have a plan. Kind of. Anyway, so the fat that they're requiring you to use as your energy source is not that easy to burn off. It is high calorie, and unlike a number of other foods, those calories do not burn off when you digest them. You know, with a lot of the carbs and things, a lot of food, you know, you've got enough fiber in there that makes it more work to burn them off. And as a result, you're burning off some of the calories you're actually taking in. It's much harder to do that with fat calories. So you end up with a higher calorie diet, and also fats tend not to be as satisfying as a lot of high fiber, high protein versus high fat, high protein type foods, or foods that have higher carbs but may have much more fiber in them. Fiber is one of those things that will help fill you up. So if you're trying to figure out ways to reduce how much you're eating and you're not quite sure how to do that, start looking at your fiber intake. Although to avoid constipation, you're going to want to up that kind of gradually and make sure to get plenty of fluids. Anyway, says a girl who has experienced all this. So overall, you're looking at a diet that is high in calories, low in satiation. In other words, low in making you feel like you've eaten a lot. Harder to burn the calories you're taking in. So you're hungrier, you want to eat more, but you're burning less, with risks like liver issues, kidney issues, nutrient deficits, and brain function issues. So, yeah, for a number of doctors, now I'm not going to say that it is or isn't, but for a number of doctors, I'm now getting into that matte green for the outer edge. And for a number of doctors, the keto diet actually, the way it's presented for the public, I'm getting fallout with this one. But those two colors go really nice together. That's pretty. For a number of doctors, this is a borderline fad diet. Fad diets tend to be very dangerous. This one should be medically supervised. It is something useful for very specific conditions. Oh, I love the colors. Loving the colors, guys. I'm loving the colors. This is beautiful. These greens are gorgeous, if a bit messy. I'm going to use Chemistry, this one right here. I'm going to put that one in the crease and go out, and then we'll use Antidote to deepen it. Okay, so I just discovered that I did everything on my eye. I thought I hit the record button again, and I didn't. So we've just missed out a whole discussion on what I was talking about. Damn it. So let me go through what I did on my eye first, and then we'll go through the diet. Basically, I started off my crease with this color Chemistry, and I did that for the wing. I deepened the actual crease area with Antidote. I mixed Venomous and Lovesick for the inner part of under my eye, and then I used Jealousy for the outer and went up just a little bit in the crease, just a touch, not a lot, just a touch. And during that whole thing, when I was doing all that, I was discussing the paleo diet. I don't know, people. Okay. We're going to move on. I'm going to discuss the paleo diet. So you guys are going to get a bit more of my setup today, just because apparently I'm like losing it somewhere. I am going to look around here and see what I want to put in the middle of those greens. If I have anything in here I want to put in the middle of those greens. I'm going to take a little bit of this Paralyzed, and I'm going to fluff a little bit just in the middle of my lid. So paleo. Did this whole discussion already, and I'm going to have to discuss it again. Having one of those days where I have a weird look, and apparently I cannot hit the record button. Go figure. Paleo. The paleo diet. The paleo diet is based on a book written by a guy who basically went around the world to various countries, various places, and observed, studied what they ate. And to me, the biggest problem, and he wrote a book and basically espoused getting back to what cavemen ate, getting back to what our ancestors ate. Now, to me, there's a couple of problems with this. I'm going to go ahead and try to soften things up a little bit. Just a little bit. The first thing is, for most cultures, if you're going to study what they're eating, the first thing you have to keep in mind is what is actually available around them. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my CoverGirl Clean Invisible Concealer in light, and I'm going to clean up my edges. You guys get to see it all today. So that's the first thing. If you're not taking in mind that people are going to eat what's more readily available, what's more affordable for them, then I'm not sure how that study really does anybody any good. The second issue with this is, even studying it back when he did, I think it was in the 1920s or something like that, food had changed. We're not going to get back to our caveman food. It's impossible to get back to our caveman food. Our food has changed. We've had more natural genetic modification of foods. We've had more foods become available. We've had lots of cross-pollination. We've had scientific genetic modification of food. Food is not the same as it was. So there's that. The third thing is that what you're observing people eat in 1920 has nothing to do with what they ate millennia ago, whatever. It just, food will naturally, adjust to the environment as new foods become available. What people eat will change. What is available will change. we're more global. We were more global even back then. We're even more global now. So basically, it's impossible to get back to what caveman ate. It's just not possible, really. And then there's two other things. We don't really know what cavemen ate, to be honest, if we're honest with ourselves. We can make educated guesses based on what was available where we find them, and knowing when certain foods came into the food stream and being able to count them out. But we can't know for sure. And a lot of science that has been looking at a lot of that stuff has indicated that they ate a lot more than we think they did. I kind of agree with James Fell. He runs the site Body for Wife. And I kind of agree with him that cavemen probably ate whatever they could get their freaking hands on, basically. So if it was something that they pulled up from the ground, something that they knocked out with a rock, something that they pulled off a tree, whatever, they ate what was available. They didn't have grocery stores, and a great deal of their time was probably spent in trying to make sure that they had the food that they needed to eat. That's what it comes down to. So eating what a caveman going to eat, he's going to eat what's available. Let's go with that. But we can go beyond that with the diet itself. So next I'm going to work on color correcting. This is the NYX Hydra, the NYX HD Studio Photogenic Concealer Corrector. I'm going to have this stuff for freaking ever. Ever, guys. Ever. Ever. Because I don't use much of it. It's a very heavy green for me. But I do need a little bit of correcting or covering, and I'm trying to get rid of this. I'm trying to work on it. Anyway, the paleo diet is another low-carb, meat-heavy diet. And the thing with it, with the paleo diet, there is no science to support it. And it has the mindset of making certain foods bad with other foods being good, which is part of the diet culture that I don't like. And that I honestly think is as bad as for you as just about anything else. You know, 3 of the diets we're talking about today demonize carbs. That is part of the diet mindset, to demonize certain foods, to make them bad for you. They are not bad for you. Anything in too much quantities can, quote unquote, be bad for you. You can kill yourself on too much water. I mean, seriously. So are you going to demonize water now? Water is required. It's something you need. And that's what these diets do. They demonize foods. They make them good or bad. And that's in that diet culture mentality. But the actual kicker for me with the paleo diet is that all of the supposed paleo food that you can buy, that you can get to go around, to get around the paleo rules, are basically money grabs. Almost every single one of them. For example, there is paleo water. Paleo water. Just take your water and filter it. It'll be cheaper and it'll be paleo water. Or better yet, take your water. We want to get real. Water back then went over waterfalls and rocks and things, but wasn't necessarily clean. You want paleo water? Put it outside, let it sit out there for a while, collect for a bit, let animals get into it, all that stuff, run it over a couple of rocks. I mean, think about that. So this is a non-scientific diet. It has a lot of risks. It risks a lot of the same risks as the Atkins and the Keto. It is low on fiber and other nutritional things that are provided by whole grains and legumes. Legumes? Is it legumes? I've always had trouble pronouncing that one. Basically nuts and beans and stuff. So, because it demonizes those foods. You're not supposed to eat those food. And yet, beans have a high protein. So it's demonizing foods that are actually very useful for certain other diets. And there are also deficiencies in vitamin D and calcium, which are necessary for bones and other things. We know we need them. We know we need to get out in the sun to process our vitamin D, but just because we need to do that doesn't mean we need to go without it. So, and I was wrong. I have 3 diets. And I have 4 the next time. So overall, this diet is a little weird to me. Like I said, it's one of those that has its adherents. That's no surprise, really. But at the same time, it's like, I'm not even sure why, because there's just so much, for lack of better words, there's so much woo in it. There's just so much that's so strange. The whole getting back to what cavemen eat is just weird. And back when cavemen ate, there was a much more limited variety of food. Why would you want to take that away from yourself? I don't get it. Alrighty, so I have one more diet. I'm just going to go through it really quickly, and then I'm going to go and finish my face. And that's another diet that's very, very, we're all used to seeing. And that is the Atkins diet. It's similar to keto, low carb, high in fat, high in protein, and it has similar risks to that. There's no evidence of sustained or sustainable weight loss with the Atkins diet, and it may increase your heart disease. But for some people, it is more sustainable than, say, keto. But again, you're looking at the same risks. You're looking at the same issues, the same problems. You're risking a lot of development and stuff like that. And that just, I don't know. It's just... why these diets, all 3 of these diets, have chosen to demonize carbohydrates, I don't know. Turning off my notes phone. It likes to tell me it's being turned off. Okay, then. But it is something that, it is... basically, our culture is trying to demonize carbs, and I'm not quite sure why that is. Carbs have some of the most delicious foods in the universe. I mean, cake is carbs. Love cake. Ice cream has dairy and carbs. And honestly, going low carb, you're not going to ever hit no carb because almost everything has carbohydrates in it. And like I said, that's your energy source. The sugars help fuel your brain processes. It is not the carbs making you fat. Let's start there. Carbs don't make you fat. Fat can make you fat because it's harder to burn and harder to process and harder to get rid of. But carbs don't make you fat. Protein won't make you fat. Vegetables and fruit won't make you fat. The things that make you overweight, fat, whatever you want to call it, is eating more than what you work out and what you burn off. And once you start gaining that weight, it is harder to get it off, especially if you're yo-yoing. And a lot of these diets, from what I have seen from people I know, they get on the diet, they lose some weight, they crow about losing their weight. They're very proud of it, which they should be, don't get me wrong. But then months or however long later, they're letting the food that they love, sneak back into their diet, and then they're regaining the weight. And then they go, oh, I regained 5, 10, whatever many pounds. I'm going to get back on my keto diet. Well, you're doing more damage to yourself than good that way. You're on that roller coaster. That's not healthy. It's just not healthy. Anyway, I'm going to go and finish the rest of my face. Sorry for all the flub up so far. I'm really hoping we didn't cross over and lose some information. today would be the day, right? Anyway, I'm going to go finish my face and we'll be back for some final thoughts. And yeah, so see you in a few. This is our finished look. I did make some adjustments more than just the touch-ups I need. I finally figured that what was the problem with the look was the yellow. And I took some of that color from the Pretty Poison palette, the Paralyzed, and I put it over the yellow. It didn't hide the yellow completely, but what it did was tone it down, except more towards the inner corners where, yeah, it's kind of brighter there, but it is not as bright as it was. And I think that color was the color that was just causing the problem. Hopefully I've already started losing some. Hopefully I haven't lost too much. But here is our finished look. I actually like it now that I've toned down that yellow just a bit. There's still some of that yellow there, which is nice because it brightens everything up, but it is not like, whoa, yellow. There's a place for yellow, and I don't think the yellow really worked very well with this. For the Be a Light palette, the blurring powder, I don't think it blurred anything really. I think what it did was it actually added a bit of a glow, just a little bit of a glow. Not sure it's something I'd use. However, I do think the bronzer worked for me. The blush came off just a touch on the pink side, but again, I think it's worked for me. All of these had more of a shine to them. Well, the bronzer and the powder had more of a shine to them than I would normally do. But overall, I think it's good for me for the winter. Initially I used the black from the Alamar. This is not a, turn that so I don't blind y'all. This is not one of the deepest blacks I've seen. If anything, it edges more towards the gray in the blacks. I initially used that, but then a new came in, and I got to try my first ColourPop liquid liner. This is in a blue. I did it over the black, so it doesn't look blue right now, but I actually, I really like this. So I've tried the mascara at this point too. I'm really impressed with both of these. So I'm actually considering getting more of the colors. It was really nice. But anyway, so that was a new one. I actually do kind of like the look now that the yellow is a bit toned down. I do think the purple and green work with that yellow sort of as helping them transition, and I think it looks kind of spring-like is what it is, you know, purple flowers, green leaves, a little yellow here and there. It just works for me. Anyway, to basically close up, if you're on one of these diets and they work for you and you can keep it up through your life, that's great. Just make sure you're aware of the risks and that you are doing what you need to do to minimize those risks. With all three of these diets, I would honestly recommend that you consider them under doctor supervision if you're going to do them at all. I personally find diets that are restrictive in the way these are actually feed more into diet culture than are really honestly that healthy. Healthier diets are like diets like the Mediterranean diet, which helps, which focuses on what you should eat and doesn't say don't eat these. The Mediterranean diet is actually a very healthy diet. It's a diet that I would love to follow more if we could afford the fish, which is the biggest problem with the Mediterranean diet. Because it is very reliant on fish and olive oil and stuff like that. It is a very healthy diet. Or if anything, you know, find a pyramid that works for you, one of the various pyramids that works for you. Again, these focus on what you should be eating and don't say don't eat this. And that is where my problem is with a lot of the diets that we have today, is that they are they label foods good and bad, and they tell you to get rid of certain foods out of your diet. And it may be foods that you love. And if it's food that you love, you're not going to be able to stick to the diet. And that's something that you need to consider when deciding what kind of diet you're going to follow. And also, like I said, the risks. And I will put links to all of this down below at some point. I shouldn't say at some point. They will be down below. It's like I said, it's been a day. I'm glad that all I have after this is an unboxing. Anyway, we're going to stop with that. I've just... these diets have been concerning to me for some time, and I watch friends get on them, get off them, get back on them. And it's honestly, if a diet is trying to sell you something, they're part of diet culture, honestly. Mediterranean diet cookbooks are done by different authors, but there is no official Mediterranean diet come buy our shit type of site. Whereas there is an official Atkins come buy our shit type of site. There are several Paleo come buy our shit kind of type of sites. Those sites bother me because honestly, they are... they're just money grabs. And that's the biggest thing. You have to look at a diet and say, is this honestly a healthy diet or is it a money grab? What is wrong with this diet before what is right with this diet? What was this diet originally intended to do? How did it get changed to make it a more public diet? Things like that. You really do need to research a diet before you get into it. And I think a lot of people don't do that. I think a lot of people jump on the bandwagon and then they think it works for them because it cut calories or did something for them, and they're not realizing that any diet that cuts calories will work for you. So just do your research, do your due diligence, and yeah, make sure that you are covering your bases before you dive into something that could end up being that's going to make an impact on your health. You want to make sure that impact is going to be positive, and that if it has risks, that you know how to minimize those risks. And if it's something that should be monitored by a doctor, that you are being monitored by a doctor. Otherwise, find a diet that's just, find a pyramid, honestly. Just find a pyramid. There's the healthy weight pyramid, there's the Asian pyramid, there's the Latin pyramid, there's the Mediterranean pyramid. Something out there is going to fit you and the food you like to eat, and it's not going to tell you not to eat certain things. And that is one of the biggest things that I have a problem with these diets. How they demonize carbs, in particular with the ones we discussed today. So yeah, that's something that you need to think about if you're trying to get into some kind of diet. And once again, I have rambled on and repeated myself way too many times. I do that. Anyway, if you like what you've seen and are not subscribed, then I hope you will subscribe. And if you do subscribe, I hope that you will hit the notification bell down below. If you're part of my notification squad, please check your bell and your subscription because, yeah, they disappear. Still, they disappear a lot. I currently upload Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, and we do occasionally have bonus videos. I did plant this last weekend, so we're going to be getting more of those bonus videos very soon, I hope. Hope we got past all the freezing stuff and that they do well. If you don't subscribe, well, I would be very sad and disappointed, but I hope you will come back again anyway, because you are always welcome here. We love having company here. We really do. And if you do come back again, don't forget to bring your cup of tea. Now, this tea has gotten cold, and I have never had Earl Grey tea cold. I'm worried about this. I have noticed that with teas that have a bitterness to them at any point, when they're cold, that bitterness gets stronger. Yeah. Let's give it a taste. Good news, well, okay then. The good news is the bitterness didn't get stronger. It did get just a touch deeper, not by much. The bitterness is about the same level as it was. It's just the whole flavor got a little deeper. And it actually has almost a... I'm not sure if it's because of how much milk and sugar I put in it, but it's got almost a chocolate taste to it. That can't be right. But seriously, that's what I'm getting. Just almost a chocolate. Not quite. It's like on the border of that, if that makes sense. But that's actually pretty good cold. I'm really impressed. Anyway, all that said, I hope you have a great day.